Hey everyone, it's Laura. Thank you so much for checking out the Backyard series. Today I'm really excited because we are going to a doctor's office. I'm not joking. This building used to be a doctor's office and it is now turned into studio spaces for artists. The neighborhood artist we're visiting, his name is Aaron Rayner and he is a painter. So when we go and we talk to Aaron, look around his studio space and see if you recognize anything that you would see in a doctor's office. All right, are you guys ready? Let's go meet Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Rayner. I'm a Tulsa-based artist, and this is the Backyard series. What do I create? I like to think that I create narratives or stories or images that kind of compel the end user or audience to be drawn in. I think a lot of times you get this art that is very, I don't want to say simplistic, but simple with its meaning, whereas the art that I create, there's motion and hopefully there's emotion that gets the audience drawn into it and they kind of get pulled into this narrative of what's happening or a feeling based on the subject matter. And when it comes to the mediums for that type of art, there's really no boundary. You know, I do photography, I do sculpture to some extent, and I do different types of painting, so watercolor, acrylic, oil, because the type of paint that you use, it has a personality, it has a purpose. Watercolor, for example, is very unforgiving, and so you have to approach it completely different than you would with acrylic or tempera or colored pencils or markers even. I've done Sharpie marker drawings before, and there's no limitation to what you create as long as you're creating something with what I would like to think is a purpose. So if you're anything like me, you're a visual person, just right out of the gate. And for me, what attracts my eye or things that I find interesting is lots of movement or high contrast colors or shadows. Because I feel like that understanding light is one of the most primary parts of visual arts. Is that one of my sayings is that we're all just kind of living in the light, and if you can capture that light, the movement kind of comes through. So in a painting like this, I'm sometimes moved by photographs that I see or ones that I take. In the case of this one, it was one that I saw, and one of the things I liked about it the most was high contrast, but it didn't have a lot of color to it. So I did what could be considered color replacement, and then I kind of amp up the motion behind what I'm seeing and how I'm interpreting it. And I look for that a lot in my paintings or the pictures that I select or the pictures that I take. I don't like flatness in imagery. I don't like stillness in energy, because life isn't that way. I feel like if I was flat and still, I'm probably dead. And that's just not the kind of art that I think is going to move people. And so I always look for, or I gravitate towards subject matters that have motion, that have contrast, that have this breathable visual aspect to it. When did I find out that I was an artist? Well, it's a funny story. When I was just really, really young, and we're talking like 3 years old, I think, 2 or 3 years old even, I walked up to my mom and I asked her, "How do you write my name?" And so she took the pencil, not in my hand, she actually showed, she wrote it, and I watched her do it. And then as she tells the story, I kind of nodded, took the crayon and the paper away, and the rest of the afternoon I'm just sitting there writing my name exactly as she had put it on there. And I think that's when my parents realized I had this natural inclination towards, being just this very visual child, and they encouraged that. My mom is also creative in her own way, but she kind of nurtured that creativity by introducing me to, you know, colored pencils, crayons, markers, and what, you know. And that was just kind of what I did. You know, that was just the way that I started to express myself through my childhood. Obviously, through high school, I was kind of excelling more than other artists. Some artists were better than me, but it's just kind of like this was kind of the path that I thought I was supposed to take right into college. And so, that was the journey for me. You know, I got a art scholarship here in Oklahoma with University of Science and Arts, and I had I went through their fine arts program, and then I kind of latched on to their commercial design and commercial arts program because computers were kind of coming up, and that was the path I took. I think the great part about Oklahoma is that it's just become a very, very diverse state for the arts. I think a lot of people get hung up on the fact that you either got to go East Coast or West Coast, but they'd be surprised just how much diversity is here in just the Tulsa area and down into Oklahoma City and just a lot of the suburbs. There's so much talent and there's so much culture that's coming into our state. I think it would really surprise a lot of people. So my favorite art teacher is Mrs. Crane, and she was a teacher that I had in the 4th grade at a private school out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And don't put too much into the private school part of that. It was really just the Wesleyan Christian school up there in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and so there wasn't this elaborate art program. But what I did have is a teacher that took a genuine interest in my aptitude for art, so much so that she had me lead a class into an activity based off of one of my favorite artists, Michelangelo. And one of the things that Michelangelo did for the Sistine Chapel is that he painted on his back. And so if you can imagine painting on your back with paint getting in your face and the plaster getting all over you and just the neck soreness that you had, I had the kids do that, where we took our desks and we taped the paper on the bottom of our desk, and then we got underneath there with tempera paint and we started painting. And it was a blast. It was a total mess, but it got the children engaged in that art experience, and I'd like to think there were a few artists that were born that day. What advice do I have for aspiring artists is to just continue to learn, investigate, experiment. A lot of people, they kind of stick to one thing that works because they're so proud of how good they're getting with it, but you don't really grow in that way, and the only way that you grow is by trying something new and getting out of your comfort zone. When you get into college, one of the things that they're going to do to you is that they're going to make you paint and draw and create with your non-dominant hand. And so for me, I was predominantly right-handed. It meant me learning to paint and draw with my left hand, and I grew as an artist just tenfold out of that experience alone. It's just learning, and continuing to learn and getting outside of these little comfort zones. And the same applies for art. You may be great with watercolor, and that's great because watercolor is hard. But that's no reason not to do oil painting. And you may be great at acrylic because it's so easy to work with and it's forgiving. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn watercolor. So I really encourage you to just continue to learn different techniques, different styles, and just really investigate, because the more styles and techniques that you learn as an artist, you're just adding that to your toolkit, and it's going to make you become more successful.